Wages have grown at their fastest annual rate since December 2018, but at 2.4%, wage growth is still less than half the rate of inflation. Joining me now is Andrew McKellar, the CEO of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Andrew, thanks for your time today. Are wages rising quickly enough in this country, and where would you like to see annual wages growth numbers sitting at?
Oh, good afternoon, Ed. The figures that we saw released today were certainly less than expected. Nonetheless, I do think there is evidence out there that wages are beginning to push up. One of the things, if you look into the data that came out today, is average increases where they're occurring are actually up to about 3.4% now. So that's higher than the overall index figure, of course, but it does show that when they're occurring, wages are starting to pick up, and over coming months we will expect that will occur more on a more widespread basis.
Wages obviously then are slowly starting to rise in this country, but we've also got rising inflation and business costs, and now we've got interest rates clearly on the way up too. So how do your members deal with all of those cost pressures at once?
Look, this is a very significant factor. It's not just the cost of living that's going up, it's the cost of doing business. So we've seen right around the country, particularly for small business, the impact of very significant supply chain pressures. This is pushing input costs up. Materials are very difficult to source at the moment. So that's adding to the cost pressure that many businesses are facing. Of course, we're seeing that inflation is also increasing. What we don't want to have is a situation where wages start to feed back into that cycle, and ultimately we would have the risk that could put further upward pressure on interest rates beyond where they're likely to go anyway.
The Bureau of Statistics today said private sector wages were growing slightly faster than the public sector. So how do you get a pay rise at the moment at one of your members?
There is evidence that that's occurring. One of the things that the figures that come out today don't show is the extent of churn that's out there in the marketplace. So if people are going to a new job, they're getting more pay as they go to that job, then that's adding to upward pressure on wages in the market. This is a much narrower measure that comes out today in this wage price index. So it's taking no account of those compositional shifts in the workforce, nor in the hours worked. What we know at the moment is it's a very tight labour market. Unemployment at just 4%, tipped to go lower. Very difficult to fill those shortages at the moment in terms of labour. So inevitably, we would expect over the coming months, we'll see those official wage increases go higher. We've got to be very careful not to add back into inflation. If we can get inflation back into a 2 to 3% target range, then these sorts of wage increases are going to be quite reasonable.
Yeah, before the wage numbers came out this morning, Prime Minister Scott Morrison said he expects real wages to start rising in 2023. So that's about 18 months away. So is that roughly when the industry expects inflation is going to be back down to a more normal level?
Well, that's got to be a key objective of policy, is to ensure that inflation doesn't run away from here. You can see the trajectory in terms of what the Reserve Bank is going to do with interest rates. They will start to rise. They'll come back to a more normal level, provided we can get inflation, back down to somewhere in the 2 to 3% range, within 1 to 2 years. Then obviously we'll be in a much more sustainable position. We can't take the risk of having a situation where wages and prices are chasing each other, where interest rates are starting to go up and growth has been damaged as a result. That would be a disastrous outcome for the economy. That's what we've got to avoid.
Well, Andrew McKellar, Chief Executive of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, thanks for your time today.